Well, good morning, everyone. I hope that you are doing well this week. As you can see, my porch is a little messy. We're having some much needed, much postponed repairs and painting done, but I still thought, I can't imagine talking to you from any place else but the porch. And life is pretty much of a mess right now anyway, isn't it? I mean, we've got rising cases again in the COVID, 226,000 people dead from COVID in the United States, and a raging, hateful rhetoric just permeating the airwaves and every place else in this election season. So it seems like, why not be on a messy porch when I'm talking? But we've got good encouragement this morning from our scripture text. This text is when the Pharisees were, we're building up to the moment when things go really south for Jesus before he gets arrested. But we know that the pattern has been set for him as they've been having these challenges, honor challenges for him. And this is one of the final ones when the Pharisees ask him, what are the greatest commandments? What do you think is the greatest commandments? And remember, Moses had gotten the 10 Commandments from God, and then through the years they had piled on and piled on and piled on more and more rules. And so to ask which one is the greatest was a pretty loaded question. And Jesus answered them and said, the first is love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, your very being. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And on these two things, everything else hinges. In other words, all of the other rules that we add on to things, they need to be filtered. They need to be filtered through these two rules. And this was also an Old Testament thought too. So this is not just brand new with Jesus, but Jesus embodied it and he fulfilled it in a way that it was intended. And so his message to them in the first century Mediterranean is the same as to us. If you want to love God, love your neighbor. And in loving your neighbor, you're loving God. And be wholehearted about it. Now here's the thing that can sometimes stumble us, because it's easy to love people that we love, right? But the first century Mediterranean culture would not have heard it the same way that we in the 21st century, who base so much on what we do by how we feel about it. And what they would have heard, that word love, was less about emotion and feeling, but you could have translated it maybe as attachment to. Be attached to whoever you're attached to. And they also, any kind of inward thing was shown with an outward expression. So what Jesus was telling them is, you're attached to these people, now act accordingly, or do accordingly for these people that you're attached to as yourself, because you're all one. And if you think about it that way, then sometimes it doesn't really matter how we feel about the people that are in our neighbors, our community, who we are in our day-to-day life with. It's less about how we feel about them and more about the awareness that we are attached to one another. And our welfare depends on the welfare of all. And the welfare of all depends on how well each person is cared for. So if we think about that, it's also, on one hand, it sort of relieves us of this pressure of having to feel wonderful emotions about everyone, because we're not going to. People are going to make us mad. Some people are just we're not going to resonate with as much. But if we understand that we are all attached to one another, as humanity, we are one. And we've constructed all these ways to divide ourselves from one another. But we're actually one. And that's what Jesus is reminding us, that we're one, created in the image of the one. And so we should act accordingly. And I think in some ways that simplifies things, and in some ways it complicates it. Our very unity depends on how well we handle our diversity, and that it it can't be just about being with like-minded people. It has to be about the collective whole. And we need these differing opinions. We need different ideas and different strengths and different weaknesses. So I'm trying to focus on that today and where I fall short of that, but also how I might look for that, how I might see those places where people are trying to bring together the whole. So I don't know how you're feeling today, and I hope that you're having a great weekend. But I just want to encourage you that that the message is the same yesterday as it is today, and it will be tomorrow. And that we are of God. We are created of God, in God, and for God. And we are created for each other. We are created to be attached to one another, not in spite of our differences, but because of them. Because together they make us whole. I've got a little surprise for y'all, so hang on. Okay, as an extra surprise, I have Eloise, my eldest granddaughter, with me today, and I wanted to ask her opinion because she always has a great perspective of what it means to be a good neighbor. What does it mean to you, Eloise, to love your neighbor?
It means to be kind to them, and if they do wrong to you, still do good to them, and like don't take their stuff. And it really connects to the 10 Commandments, like be nice to your neighbor and don't take any stuff that isn't yours.
And how do you handle it when somebody is not kind to you or mean to you or leaves you out? What is it that helps you still feel love for them and treat them kindly?
To know that they don't mean it. Sometimes they don't mean it. Like if they're your friend and then they leave you out, they really don't mean to do it. In their heart, they still like you as a friend and they love you.
That's good. So it takes a lot of forgiveness, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. It does.
And we want to be forgiven ourselves too, don't we? So do you think that, how do you think gratitude fits into that? How does gratitude help you look at people more kindly? Are you great? Go ahead.
Know that like they've been kind to you once and they will be again. Like be still happy and play with your other friends if they leave you out or something like that.
Yeah, be grateful for your blessings and what you have, right?
If you have a best friend and they leave you out, you still have other friends and you need to play with them too.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes people will think that they won't play with you because you're only playing with them, and then they won't ask you to play with them because you're always playing with one person. But if you like change it, like go around, it just makes your life happier because you're not playing with the same friends always.
That's a good idea. Yeah, to sort of keep a larger picture in mind. Well, what would you tell people that are kind of getting tired of the pandemic and tired of wearing a mask, and how would you encourage people today to keep on keeping on?
Pray to God and to help you with that, and like release your stress and maybe read the Bible, and just to say that like God has you and God will take care of you. I like to think of it sometimes as God won't let you out of his hands.
I love that.
God just keeps you in his hands.
I love that. Okay. Thank you so much, Eloise. Bye, everybody.